really excited because this is our first recording. So let's begin. And I'm Naganand, your host, and I'm deeply honored and excited to welcome our guest today, Vimala Seshadri, Dr. Vimala Seshadri, I should say. Vimala is the founder of Insight Coaching Solutions. She is a well seasoned coach and facilitator with over 25 years of experience in the corporate industry and across industries, I should say. She is a doctor by profession, pharmacy doctor by profession, and she is also an NLP master trainer, master practitioner, and also she founded a non-profit organization for children in India way back in early 2000s, and she has raised more than 15 children through this noble cause of hers. She is a wonderful coach, a wonderful parent, and also a wonderful friend to me as well. Thank you so much, Vimala, for accepting, to be part of this journey of progressive, parenting, which we will all look to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Naganand, and congratulations on launching your podcast. And I'm honored to be the first guest. So, as you continue this is going to be great. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, Vimala. And so, before we deep dive into this, I would like you to just share your experience, a brief about being a parent to so many children, and what are your perspectives on parenting?
So it's the greatest job you'll love, and you'll completely get it wrong. I know I get it wrong even today. You say something, you do something. Parenting is it's the toughest job you'll ever love. It has its rewards. It definitely consumes a lot of energy and time, and a piece of you goes into every child that you come into contact with, whether you're a parent or a teacher or someone who works with children. There's a little piece of you that goes to that person, and I think that is the greatest joy for me, at least, being a parent. I have parented children from the ages of starting. They came to me when they were in their teens, 14, and I've had a child also, so a baby. So from all the different experiences, one thing I would say would be one of my greatest learnings is that you'll never get it right. And as soon as I stepped into knowing that I'm never going to get it right as a parent, I realized that the pressure was off, and I became a better parent. It's amazing how that it was a paradox. And it was me trying to stop being perfect as a parent, because you're just not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. It's humanness. It's messy. It's emotions. It's a striving, though. It's not that, oh, I'm going to get it wrong, I could do whatever I want. It's more of, I got it wrong today. I didn't get it the way I wanted to, but tomorrow I have another opportunity. And you have an opportunity for the rest of your life and your child's life. That journey continues every day. I have adult children now, and with them, I always say, God, why didn't I do that when I was your age? When you were younger, and oh my God, I can't believe I missed that opportunity. So yeah.
A wonderful experience, isn't it? And yes, you rightly said, there is no right, wrong. We have to, learn as parenting. Of course, there is no school for parenting as well.
It's on the job training. Absolutely.
It's experiential learning for all of us. And moving on, what are some of the challenges you face early on, Vimala, and you mentioned to me that you had a first kid. What you had was a teen, and what were your learnings from that early on experience?
Yeah, that's a tough one because there were so many challenges. Every day was a challenge, and for multiple reasons. But specifically, when I think about parenting, and the biggest challenge that I had was probably, and I think this is true for any parent, is building trust. Um,
Rightly
and I
said.
think the reason why, I mean, with my situation, because these kids were coming into my home, and they were leaving their families. They were, it was tough for them, and it was scary. I had to build trust. I had to show that I am reliable, dependable, um, and that I won't hurt them. And these are children who came to me already hurt. And so the first part of the journey was just slowly, slowly building trust. Um, when I said something, I made sure that I did it. There were boundaries that were set, that, these are things that I expect from you, you expect from me. Um, the kids were very scared and, traumatized to a certain degree, and I had to be cognizant of that. And I think also they needed a lot more attention, a lot more one-on-one, a lot more encouragement. And that was challenging because I needed someone to do that for me as a human being, and I was pretty much doing it on my own. I had my best friend who was helping me at the time, Mr. Prasad, and he had his family. I was like taking care of the children. He would help me with everything else that had to do with running a nonprofit organization, getting my name out, doing the fundraising, and getting all of that part of it, the business aspect of it. But the actual parenting, the actual connecting with children was on my own. So
Correct.
being a single parent, and then slowly going from one to, two kids, to then four kids, then eight kids. And I had eight kids for a pretty long time, about 2 years, 3 years, and then I started taking in more kids. Um, and I realized that it was um, it was getting all of us into a well-oiled machine of routine.
Hmm.
We get up the same time every day. We had our breakfast. We had, lunch needed to be packed. School needed, they went to school. They came home. They had playtime and snacks, and then they had their tuitions, and then they finished off their homework. We had dinner, and it was bedtime. There was no room for kids to really think, and there was no room for me to really process a lot, except when we're in our beds and we're thinking, and we're, and a lot of times I would, the structure was, in our house at least, was after dinner, and everybody had a chore to do, whether it was, washing dishes, drying dishes, putting them away, filling water bottles, and then we would go to bed, and kids would brush their teeth and get ready, and they would be in their beds, and I would read to them. And this routine went on for years and years. um, yes, there were days missed because, child was sick, or I was not well, or I was away, very rarely, but if I had a meeting or something like that, I would be away. But that really was my biggest learning. And if I would ever go back and say, what's the one thing I would like to tell parents to do, it's to have routine. Boring, mundane routine. I mean, for some parents, some people, it's just like, oh no, not the same thing every day. But when we have that, our our ability to not have decision making fatigue is gone. It disappears. There's a certain amount of predictability that children need, that is there for them. And I think that some lifestyles allow for us to be able to do this. I know that this was fine for me for the first 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. And then in 2010, I started working, where my job was traveling, and I traveled. And that was like the first time my kids were like, wait, you're not home. Who's going to read to us? Who's going to do this? And we had to come up with a new system. And each one of the older kids then read to the little kids. And yeah, the routine started breaking at that point, when I started, when I had to go to work, and I had to travel. But the routine when I traveled was a routine in and of itself because they knew I was gone certain days. So there's a routine in that. But I think that was my biggest challenge at times, but it was also the biggest learning that when we had routine, life was so much easier for everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
that's an interesting point there, routine. You know, I wanted to ask this question in between itself. Nowadays, I mean, for normal, parents as well. I mean, for everyone, having two kids, three kids sometimes can be so overwhelming. Sometimes, with this, especially in these COVID situations. How did you manage with 8 kids, 14 kids?
yeah, I've talked to a lot of families that are large families, and it's actually easier. For me, the tipping point is four. If I have more than four kids, they kind of take care of each other. They get on with it. They just say, okay, you're doing this, and they figure it out and they play together, and it's so much easier. The biggest challenge is when I had one child, and that happened last year. All my kids went to their places, to their corners of the world because of COVID, and it was just me and my youngest son. And I'm like, oh my God, I've become entertainer, I've become brother, sister, I've become playmate, I've become teacher, I've become parent, I've become mother, father. And I'm just like, whoa, this is way more difficult. So, those of you who have a single child, I feel your pain. Um, because I think the thing is that our world now becomes just them. It's not a collective them. It's, oh, and even though I knew where each of my kids were and what was going on, for the most part, I wasn't fully engrossed in their lives. So there was a separation there, which is actually very healthy. As I said, for me, the tipping point was for more than like 5 kids and above, easiest thing. 3 kids, which I have now, are tough because even though they're older, there is this thing of 2 kids against one, one's always left out, and or someone will, it just happens that way. You were supposed to, I was supposed to. Seemed to happen less when I had more children. I prefer also a bustling house with lots of noise, and it just, for me, that's life. And I think that it's something that I dearly miss now, as all my kids now are in their all my older kids are in their 20s. They're independent, they're either in college or working, um, married, and downsizing is a lot more difficult. And I know I've spoken to a lot of parents who's kind of like in the same space as I am, and they're like, yeah, the empty nest syndrome is a challenge in and of itself. Our work is done, now what? And that's a question I've asked myself even as a parent. So, okay, the older ones are stable, they're steady, what's next for me? And that really opens up a lot of doors for us, as and it's a human evolutional cycle. I think it's just the way we do it. We have these little kids, they consume us, and then they don't anymore because they become teenagers, they become young adults, they go to college. We're now left with this, okay, what do I do? I don't need to make breakfast for anybody, I don't need to pack a lunch, you're not going to school anymore. Now what do I do?
Oh, your
And it's
routine is
changing.
upset.
Yeah, now we have to have a whole new thing, and that's the thing, is we're all going to change. COVID has obviously created a such an awareness of how maybe disconnected we were with our children pre-COVID. We would, they would be off to school, they'll come home, do their homework, have some sort of routine, go to bed, but we would really not know what they were doing. And now, because of COVID, I know a lot of parents, like, I know everything my child does. I know which subject they're struggling in. I hear the classes online, or I know when my child is bored, and it's tough for them. But we have an opportunity now to really connect with our children.
Absolutely. And talking of this COVID situation, recently I was talking to a few, students. Their question is, this point of time, due to COVID and external situations, everybody is trying to advise them. You know, what's your thought on that? They say that they don't listen. There is nobody to listen. We want to be heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you had taken those same kids and ask them pre-COVID times, they'd say the same thing. I'm not sure if that is directly related to COVID, but I know that one of the biggest complaints I had as a child is no one really heard me, no one listened to me. And it's a common experience, I think, with a lot of kids. Um, and I think it's a common thing for humans. I know as an adult, in a corporate setting, I work with a lot of executives and they're like, no one's hearing me. I know nurses in a hospital, doctor doesn't hear me. Doctors to other doctors, no one's listening. Politicians, nobody listens in politics. It's a global phenomenon of this key skill that is seriously not taught in schools, is listening. And if we learn to listen, I think we learn to become compassionate. I think we learn to connect. I think we learn to become aware. And it is a skill that I know as a coach, we learn to listen. We learn to listen for structure. We learn to listen for experience. And if parents could learn that skill of listening before their child is born,
Yeah.
that child is blessed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And as I said, I don't think it's a COVID related circumstance. I think that humans in general are facing that. I also feel very strongly that kids are not different from adults. They're just a smaller version of us because they're humans. They're not, they're not dogs or cats or goats. They're actual human beings, just smaller. It's the only difference, really. They have emotions. They have the capacity to understand the world from their perspective. And parents who listen, who stay curious, and who ask questions.
Yeah.
Those parents have, I would say, a leg up on really influencing the type of adult their child is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually answered my next question, which was there, like, is there any one pattern to parenting? You mentioned, who listen, who ask questions. So absolutely. I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of the way to, is there anything else?
Yeah, I think so parenting changes, right? So when you have a baby, it's a completely different job as a parent because you're a protector, you're a guide, there's very minimal verbal communication other than what you say to them. There's nothing coming back at you. In the toddler stage, especially if you have what we call, and I really don't subscribe to this, the terrible twos, terrible threes, where the children are saying no for the very first time. I want to do it my way. Their independence is being sought out at 2 or 3. And that's really when separation begins. And it becomes more obvious as the child evolves and grows. The tweens and the teens are probably the most difficult for humans, I would say, especially middle school, which would be like 12, 13, 14,
Yeah.
are the toughest ages for us because it's when, as humans, we go through the most dramatic and traumatic changes spiritually, physically, personally, education wise. Every single part of our life at that point changes. We get, we go through adolescence. Our body literally changes. Every cell of that body changes. And we have to bear in mind that all of that is happening with a mind that's not fully developed yet, because the mind is also developing at that point.
Yeah. Interesting.
And yeah, and I know a lot of us forget as parents that what our child is going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
We focus on what we're going through. Don't they know we're working and we have this tension and that tension and all of this? And I'm like, I wonder what they're going through.
Yeah.
And it's a really challenging time for us as humans as we evolve. Once we pass through that, I will tell you, parents, just get through the teen years, survive, get a t-shirt that said, I survived my teenage years and my kids' teenage years. And that's all you need. After that, it does become a lot more easier if you've put in the time to have an adult relationship with your child. And one of the tricks, you were saying, what are some patterns and tricks? One of the tricks I think I wish I had known, 20 years ago when I started all of this, but I have done with my youngest child is I see him as an adult and I treat him as the adult that I want to have this conversation with. When I don't speak down to a child, I speak on par with the child because I learn from him as much as he learns from me in
Wow,
every
that's
conversation.
powerful. That's very powerful, Vimala.
And it's something that I've recently experienced, is that I know no more than my child. I may have more experience, but I don't know that experience is the best experience for my child because he's his own person. He has to have his own journey. And I think that has stopped me from advising a lot of times. I will make suggestions asking permission. Hey, would it be okay? Can I give you a suggestion right now? Is that okay for me to do? And asking a child, is it okay that I say this? Respects them as the individual human that they are.
Yeah, that's really a powerful thought invoked. Yeah, considering my child as an adult and how we interact
Yeah.
with an adult. Yeah, very
Mhm.
powerful. Wow, that's a lot to process.
It's a lot
But
to digest. And there are ways to do this, Naganand. There's visualizations, you can get having a session just on being able to see not what your child is going to be doing, because the job is the least part of them, but who is your child?
yeah,
What kind of adult are we cultivating? If we want a compassionate child as an adult, are we allowing that child to feel emotions?
wow,
If we want a powerful, focused adult, um, are we giving them the skills to be mindful and meditate and stay grounded? Are we giving them opportunities to flex that muscle in their mind? If we want a child that is giving and forgiving, are
yeah,
we giving them the opportunity to be hurt so they can forgive? And these are the things, when I first heard this, I'm like, wow, if I really want this amazing child who's kind and firm and assertive and confident, they have to go through that opposites when they're kids. And I need to be there to allow this to emerge for them.
I think it's naturally we should allow them to go through that process, whatever it comes, and just help them along with that. You can't
Yeah.
obviously give them those experiences by force.
No, but you can allow them to experience it and
Yeah,
step back.
exactly.
The best thing parents can do, I will tell you again, lessons learned,
Yeah,
do little. The least you do as a parent,
is
the
more
most you will do for your child. Don't
less
tie
is
their
more.
shoes. Don't feed them. Once in a while when they're ill, yeah. Don't do their homework for them. Don't do their projects for them.
Yeah,
If you can, don't even do it with them. You
yeah,
can say, hey, here's an idea. Are you ready for my suggestions? Wait for their answer to be yes, and then say, okay, this is what I would do. Here's some ideas, and step back. And that is truly the hardest thing to do as a parent, is to step back and watch your child struggle.
yeah.
Watch your child get hurt by their best friend, who shared a secret, or who doesn't trust them anymore, or when your child is humiliated in school for whatever reason they have that, or the first time your child is bullied, or your first time your child bullies, and these experiences is part of like a human evolution. And to know that up front and saying, it's okay that they're struggling, I know they're struggling, it's breaking my heart that they're struggling, they will come to me. They have all the resources with them.
Absolutely.
I can be a resource for them if they want me to. Now, the more you step back as a child, what I found paradoxically is the more they will invite you in as a teenager, and they will completely open the doors for you as an adult.
Wow, that's really powerful. Yeah, and I think just we have so much of time. Just to close, our first session, just wanted to know your thoughts on how can we navigate through, through some of these current situations which are in, the most
Yeah,
unprecedented we have seen for ourselves.
absolutely.
What's your thoughts on that from a parent's perspective?
I say there are three things. First is self compassion. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Um, one of the techniques that I learned from uh, probably the leader in compassion today is Kristen Neff. And Kristen Neff has a wonderful book called Fierce Compassion. It was just released last year. She has a couple of other books, but in that she repeats one of her exercises that she's had in almost all her books, and it's an innate way for us to take care of ourselves. And when we don't take care of ourselves emotionally, physically, spiritually, personally, professionally, it's really quite violent. We're not, when we don't care for ourselves, we're actually being quite caustic to ourselves. Children pick up on this. And children, we as you said, we are their role models.
Yeah.
And so they will start doing that for themselves. So be kind and compassionate to yourself. When you are struggling, have that cup of tea for yourself. I do something called a soothing technique, which came from Kristen Neff. And, pick something. And one of the greatest things is to just do this. Just imagine your grandmother, grandfather, an aunt, a parent, a really, really dear friend of yours, or even a pet that just kind of either licks you or just is just doing this for you and saying you're going to be okay. And every once in a while, when life is overwhelming, you've just finished a meeting, your child has a big project to do, and you have to make dinner, and then the dishes are still waiting for you because it's COVID times and no maids and no cooks, and you're just looking at this like, oh, how am I going to do this? You just say, you know what, I'm just going to go to my space and just have this, just breathe and say, you know what, let me just close my laptop, make my cup of tea for myself, and then I can be present with the rest of my day.
Yeah.
This one thing is to just, even if it's minutes, can help. Putting your hand on your heart and just feeling that heartbeat saying, I'm okay. I'm a good mom. I'm a good dad. Really helps. Connect to yourself as well as help you connect to your child. So first thing is compassion, self-compassion. The second thing is know in the core of your being that you will mess up as a parent, and it's okay. Once you come to acceptance that, yep, I'm not going to get it right, it's almost like this burden is off of you. You have that huge weight that says, oh, okay, you don't intentionally, it's not you intentionally mess up, but you know that, I had the best intention in helping my child with X, Y, and Z. I had my best intention saying this to my child. It didn't go the way I wanted it to. What could I have done differently? There's a learning in that. But you will mess up and it's okay. And the last thing is, and I think this is something that I have practiced with all my children very consciously, and now it's really become unconscious. Hug your child every day, as many times as you can, but at least once a day. Hug your child and receive that hug from them. There are years that you may not be able to hug them, but hug them mentally, because you want to give them space. They're like, don't touch me, and that's fine too. They may grow out of that, but I have a 18-year-old son who's going to be 19, who never came near me. He came to me when he was 8. And then when he was about from 10 till 17, the best I would get is like a punch in the arm or a, okay, dude, yeah. I get one of these from him, like, yeah, okay. Um, and then all of a sudden, I asked him permission. I said, hey, can I give you a hug? He's like, yeah, sure. And ever since then, there's not a day that goes by that he doesn't put his arm around me and just hangs out with me in the kitchen. And we are hugging. And I will tell you, it is the most healing for me and connection for him. But hug your child at least once a day. If you could do it 100, great, but at least once a day.
Yeah.
So, three things: self compassion, knowing you're going to make a mistake and it's okay, and hug your child.
Yeah. Oh wow, those are really powerful, Vimala. Those are really powerful. I can't thank you enough for
Oh,
taking your time to join us. And just before we close, I would like to tell all viewers that this is just our first recording of session. We will have different participants who would join and share their experiences. So please do like, subscribe, and share. Parents, the role models, the first role models. Thank you.